TL.
Hello, and welcome on this beautiful day of May 1st, 1873. How are you, Mary?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Alright, let's start. When and where were you born, and how old are you now?
I was born on December 13th, 1818, in Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm currently 55 years old.
Where were you educated, and what profession do you have?
I went to school at 3 different places. First, I went to Shelby Female Academy, where I studied grammar, geography, arithmetic, poetry, and literature. Then I went to Madame Mantel's boarding school, where I learned to speak and write in French, and to sing and dance. I also learned how to have a good penmanship. Next, I went back to Shelby Female Academy to learn advanced studies in cultural subjects, but when I went back there, the school had changed its name to Dr. Ward's Academy. Despite all my hard work in school, I did not need to work because of my family's wealth. Later on in my life, I started helping candidates broadcast their presidency, and soon after became the First Lady.
Explain some of your feelings about the Civil War.
The Civil War changed a lot of things about my life. It nearly ripped me apart emotionally. It changed my views towards slavery and the slaves. I grew up in a slave-owning family, but very much despised it, being my best friend, Elizabeth Keckley, was a slave. These feelings grew stronger after my husband and I got married. The war also made me very upset because I was torn away from my family. My own brothers were fighting for the Confederacy while my husband and I were supporting the Union.
Why do you think the Civil War was important?
I think the Civil War is important because, in the end, it brought the country back together. Even though I grew up in a slave-owning family, I very much wanted all of the slaves freed, which was also something the Civil War ended up resolving.
What has been your experience with the Civil War?
I got a lot of first-hand experience with everything in the war, because my husband was the commander-in-chief for the Union. We would always get a telegraph as soon as anything important happened. I found it really interesting to always know when the next thing was happening. I always was informed and on top of things.
What do you miss most about your life during the Civil War?
My life during the Civil War was difficult, so I don't miss much. For example, I don't miss being criticized in the newspapers for using too much money. When my husband was president, I bought several amounts of nice clothing to show my taste. Also, I spent a lot of money hiring people to try to speak to my son Willie after he died from typhoid fever at age 11. I miss my son Willie and my husband a lot. Unfortunately, my husband died when he was shot by John Wilkes Booth in 1865. I miss my family being all together. I miss my peace.
What do you see in our nation's future after the Civil War?
I see good and bad things for our nation's future. It is good because our country is no longer split in two, and the slaves got their freedom. It is bad because after all the destruction from the war, it will cost a lot of money to rebuild. Our nation will struggle with poverty and debt. Also, there will be a lot of outrages, and people won't get along as well as they used to. For example, after the war, my husband was assassinated out of anger, and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which made things harder for me. I'm sure bad things like that will or have happened to plenty of other people too.
Do you mind telling us about your husband's incident when he was assassinated?
I remember exactly what happened. It was April 15th, 1865, 7 days after surrender, when we were sitting quietly minding our own business watching the show. All of a sudden, this man by the name of John Wilkes Booth came up behind us and shot my husband in the left ear. I have no recollection as to why this happened. Abe never said anything to me about it. I miss him so much, and I know things would be a lot easier if he were still around.
How was it like being the First Lady?
Being the First Lady put me under a lot of stress. People were constantly criticizing me for what I would wear, and then I would go buy new stuff. They would just criticize me for spending money. Also, having your husband being the president isn't as easy as it seems, because it comes with a lot of stress.
Thanks for your time. It's been great talking.
I know you want pop, you want rock and roll.
You want it?
This year's remix
Got some phonics.
soul. I got hop, I got rockin'
Electronic.
beats.
From I don't know how to say that. War was difficult, so I don't miss much. What? Is it because my hand squeaked? I don't miss being criticized in the newspaper.
Oh my god!